Hi, this is Mike with Indigo Music, and today I want to show you how to set up TouchKeys with Stylus RMX in Ableton Live, and to assign controllers to your multi-touch gestures and position sensing for programming and live performance. So after loading up the TouchKeys software preset and the Native Instruments controller editor presets, make sure that your template that you're using for control is set to the TK RMX, and you can use the preset up and down buttons on your controller to change to the TK RMX preset. And you can see that there are zones here color coded for really 8 different zones, and you'll have your kicks, your snares, your tom, your hi-hat, and then your ride, and then your cymbals. And it's just kind of a basic general MIDI setup. And then you'll have all of your pages, which is your controller assignments. And you'll notice inside of the drum templates for control, I've included a TK machine and a TK general MIDI drums as well, which is basically a duplicate of these. But you may want to change those later to match other controllers, so I went ahead and made a template for you. And you also have the TK split, which is a 4-zone split. It's really, if you have the S61, then the range is going to be basically you've got a 2-range split here. But if you octave down, you could have another octave down in this range for like key switches and things of that nature. And if you octave up, you would get into the green layer, at least through an octave. But that's all that's needed for that. And just make sure that your zones are all set to different virtual ports on the MIDI device out. So after loading up the TK 8-channel RMX kit into Ableton Live, and what I've done here is I've created a multi-rack instrument within Ableton Live, within its shell, and you have an A and a B. And what I've done is I've created a instrument where you can use a controller to switch between 2 patches in real time, or blend them in real time, whatever you might want to do. And you can see that when I highlight the kit, there's a controller that moves the chain selector, and the chain selector will have certain ranges here that will, once it hits a threshold, will switch to the other Stylus RMX kit, the A and the B. And I've just got different patches loaded up in them. You can have completely different assignments for them. And what I did is I assigned my foot controller with the MIDI, which is expression pedal number 11. When you move your foot pedal, it switches between the 2 states. And so it gives you 2 layers that you can blend that in real time as well. And all this data can be recorded while you're performing, and just kind of, it's just more of a live way of programming instead of some of these things that you might usually use in a scroll editor or something of that nature. So the next thing you noticed, that there is the kick and snare. There's all of the individual elements that make up a kit. And on each one of these MIDI tracks, they have a different MIDI input device, which is 0 through 7, which is 8 different devices here. With the TouchKeys 0 on the kick, you can see in the software that zone 0 is assigned to a range of B1 to C2, which is where the kick resides on most general MIDI presets. But these zones represent the different channels in the kit. So you would look at TouchKeys 0 in your software, and if you say you want to assign, the Y position on TouchKeys to control some kick parameter, you would use the controller 118 or whatever you have assigned here to control that parameter. So you would go back to Ableton Live, and let's say in the kick, if you wanted to turn on kick position, which would be switching between 2 different kick states, sort of like the AB kit, you would just assign this controller on your complete control. You would go to MIDI, and you would select the kick position, and then you would use control 0. The Y would be 118. So you would go to your complete control, you would move the knob 118. And then not only when you move the knob are you moving the kick position, but now when you move on the kick, you move the kick position, so you can see that. So that's the general idea in assigning any kind of control parameters to any instrument in Ableton Live, is using these macro knobs, if you will. And they're completely independent, or you can have them work in conjunction with each other. So that's the basic way of setting Ableton controllers. So let me show you how to assign control over the Stylus RMX settings. Let's move our foot controller all the way to B, and let's work on the B RMX patch. I'll open up the Stylus RMX B patch, pull it up, and I'll show you what I've done here, what I've set to control. So on snare, which is TouchKeys 1 controller, if I go to the TouchKeys software and I look at zone 1, and I want to assign some parameter to the contact area, well, I would use controller number 114. So I go back to my Stylus RMX. Let's say I want to assign the reverb aux amount to contact area. All I would do would be go down here to the menu, go to MIDI learn, make sure that enable hosting is on, and I would learn the control, and I would go and move the aux with my mouse, and then go to my complete control and move the controller number that matches contact area, which is 114. So I would move the aux on my knob. So now I can control the reverb amount by how much surface area of my finger is in contact with the key. So when playing a beat, you know, you can go ahead and assign things as you're playing it and have some sort of control over it, tweak it later in your recording. That's one way. And then you'll notice on the hi-hats, I have a few different things assigned. I have panning. You can see the knob moving here. So when I look at the hi-hats, which is on 5, on MIDI channel 5, but I have hi-hat in Ableton Live being controlled by TouchKeys MIDI device 2. And when I look at TouchKeys software, I go to zone 2. And I want to control the X position. The X position I'm going to assign to the pan control for the hi-hat, which would be controller 107. So I would take controller 107 and I would assign it to the hi-hat channel, which is right here, the pan. So I would simply do the same thing. I would go down to the menu, MIDI learn control, and move the knob, and then move the knob on the complete control. And you can see that it's, when I move my finger on the X axis, that it pans left and right. And so if I play on one side of the key, it'll pan it to the right. If I pan it on the left, it will do that. If I roll my finger just randomly, you can create some good effects that way. So not only do we have that going on, but on the chaos generator, on this channel where the hi-hats reside, it's turned on. You can see the buzz parameter. When I move my finger to the, or if I play higher on the key, it throws the buzz chaos designer to the highest amount. So now that when I play low, there's less likely of a chance to get a buzz going. But the higher that I play on the key, the more often, the more likely I'll get a buzz to play. So let's move contact area, have contact area define fine pitch movement. And to do that, of course, we're going back to Ableton, looking at hi-hat, which is TouchKeys 2 zone. We go to TouchKeys 2, and we'll see we want to move the contact area on this zone, which is 109. We want controller 109 to be assigned to the fine pitch fader. We will go to learn control, move the fine fader, move controller 109 on your control 61, and set it back to 0-ish range. And now when you do contact area on the hi-hat, if If you're using the tip of your finger, it's more likely to be towards the center of the pitch. If you use more meat of the finger, it's likely to bend the pitch up by a small amount. That's a basic way to assign some of these control parameters to assignments within your VST program, and also controllers within Ableton Live. And let me show you how you could use some of Ableton Live's MIDI effects to be controlled by TouchKeys as well. Let's go ahead and turn off the Chaos Designer for this example, just so it doesn't interfere with what I'm about to show you. And so we go back to the hi-hat, and you can see that there's an arpeggio on, and you can control the rate right here. So it's just going to play 16th notes when that's turned on. So let's say on the y-axis of the hi-hat that I want to assign the ARP to turn on, you know, towards the higher side of the key. Basically splitting the key into two areas so that I can play my normal hi-hats, you know, with these two fingers. But as soon as I hit the top range, I can have it automatically start playing, you know, either a 16th note pattern or a triplet or whatever. So for the hi-hat, the controller for the Y position in TouchKeys, which the hi-hat is TouchKeys 0 again, Y position is 108. So we will assign controller knob 108 on our complete control to ARP on. So we just go to MIDI learn here, select the macro that we want to use. We will move the knob 108 on our complete control. And now you can see that we play here, and the ARP does not turn on until I reach that threshold. So if I'm playing a beat, so you can turn it on and off to play 16th notes in real time. Let's say that you want to control the synced rate with the mod wheel. You can have a controller assigned to move these synced rates in real time. Turn on MIDI learn, select the macro synced rate, and move your mod wheel, which is controller 1. Move back to this. So now when you move through, it will play those synced rates when the ARP is turned on. One last assignment that I've created inside of all of these is the position macro. So no matter what track or channel that you're on, the kick or the snare or the hi-hat, if you wanted to switch different snares with the y-axis, x-axis, contact area, you could use Y position to move from, you know, the side of the snare to the center of the snare to a rim shot or a rim click. It just all depends on what instrument or note that you assign in the Ableton Live chain selector. And I've got this set up in such a way where it should be easier to do, so that when you move the chain selector, you can see right here that it moves to different zones. And all these zones have a different pitch plug-in here. You can assign it to switch to the rim shot when you reach the snare side stick. So you could do this with the snare, the hi-hat, any of these combinations of things, just however you like to program. But thanks for watching, and check out TouchKeys at touchkeys.co.uk.